right, you guys, let's talk about the top 5 questions that I get asked about being on maintenance medicine. So, the first question that I get asked the most often is, why did I start MAT? And I started MAT shortly after I'd had a relapse and realized that even though I did have recovery time before, I had been what I call white knuckling my recovery. If you guys don't know, I started my recovery pathway in my local Narcotics Anonymous, which is a 12-step community. I stopped doing all that, but I didn't go back to using. And then, just one day I had a relapse. And that is really what pushed me to try to do something else because I realized that abstinence only was not going to work for me. Not saying that it won't work for me in the future, but at that point in time when I started going to the clinic that I go to now, it just was not working for me. I wasn't able to work on anything else that I needed to work on. I was just solely focused on not using day in and day out. And that was the only thing that I could focus on. I couldn't focus on working on my mental health or, figuring out if my mental health was tied to my substance use disorder or if it was something that needed to be treated separately. I could not work on any of that stuff. I also wasn't going to any type of counseling for the PTSD that I have. I wasn't doing anything except existing, and it was miserable. The final thing that made me want to start going to a clinic and start on a maintenance medicine was because I wanted to be all in my recovery. I didn't want to white knuckle it anymore. I didn't want to half-ass it. By the time I started my maintenance clinic, I'd already taken the first class for my peer recovery specialist. I'd already become a certified naloxone trainer. So I'd already done all of that stuff and realized that that was the path that I wanted to take my life on. That's what set my soul on fire. But at the same time, I was like, even though I know that this is what I want to do, I'm so unhappy. I didn't know what else to do. So I signed up for the clinic. I went in and did my intake, and that started right there my journey on what you see in front of you today. Going to the maintenance clinic, getting the individualized counseling, and also doing the group counseling started to lay the foundation for my recovery that I had been looking for all that time before that I couldn't find in 12-step recovery or my local faith-based recovery programs or anything like that. So that is what started my journey on maintenance. And my counselor at the time, she's no longer with the facility, but at the time when I started there, she was really a big advocate for me to get outside therapy, especially considering things from my childhood and stuff like that. Like I said, it just laid the foundation for everything that I'm doing now. Getting my mental health under control and realizing that that was something that I needed to take medicine for. It wasn't just something that I could handle or hide and just go on living and, be happy. The second biggest question that I would say that I get asked about the most is, do I have any complaints about my clinic? And I feel like this comes from a place because a lot of people, go to a clinic where they feel like they're just a number. I've never felt like that at my clinic since day one. I've never, had that experience. Since the moment that I walked into my clinic, the very first day for my intake, everybody there was just so nice to me. And when I went in my first day, I wasn't in withdrawal. And a lot of people that go to a maintenance clinic are in pretty severe withdrawal. I wasn't in that space, but even if I would have been in that space, I've been there many times when they're doing intakes, and I've seen people come in and, be right at the height of their withdrawals, and they treat those people there with just the utmost compassion. I really don't have any complaints at all because, like I said, from day one, it's just been one of the best experiences that I think I could have ever wished for. And if it wouldn't have been, I don't know if I would have, stuck with it for as long as I have. You really pressed me and were like, Jessica, you can't have positive experiences all the time. The only thing that I could complain about, and I can't even really complain about, just something that kind of weighs on me, is the patient to counselor ratio. And I say that because patients outnumber the counselors there 5-1, if not more. It's probably more than that. So that would be my only complaint. And that's not really a complaint. If you've watched my previous 2 videos about my taper and what happened with that, I'll link them up here for you guys. I always forget what side of the screen they pop up on for y'all. The only other complaint that I have about that and what kind of ties in together with the patient to counselor ratio is because when I got switched, after Katie left and I got my new counselor, we call her Joanne here, I had a really hard time, a month or better, getting in touch with her. And it was like calling and leaving continuous messages or going down there to the clinic and sitting there and waiting for her. And I just never could for a very, very long time. And it was right in the middle of a taper, and a lot of stuff was changing in my life. I go more into depth in those previous two videos about it. And that was very, it made me very anxious and, just was a little chaotic. So that's why I say that. But also know that there's not a lot of people that are willing to work in this field and in this area right now. So I understand it. I just, like I said, if I was pressed and had to say if there was one negative thing I would say about the clinic, what would it be? It would be that. Number three, and I'm kind of putting two questions together here because I always get one right after the other, or people ask them at the same time, and I feel like they kind of go together. Because the third question that I get all the time is, do you feel like you traded one drug for another? And the second part of that is it's usually followed up by, do you get high off of your Suboxone? I don't feel like I traded one drug for another because when I was in active use, my behavior, my mindset, my mentality, everything about me circled around my drug use. How I could get more, when I could get more, how much I had, if I had stuff in my pocket, how soon I could slip away so I could go do more. And with my Suboxone, it's kind of like a one and done. I get up in the morning, I go in the kitchen, and get my coffee. And once I'm awake a little bit to remember what I'm doing, then I take like my daily medicine, which includes my antidepressants and my anxiety medicine. Then I come in here and get my lockbox and I take my Suboxone. And that's it. Like, I don't think about it for the rest of the day. If I was still using, it would be an all the time thing. Like, if I was awake when I was using, I was thinking about it. It consumed me so much that I would even, like, if I would wake up in the middle of the night and want to go get a drink out of the kitchen, or, I woke up in the middle of the night and had to go pee, it was like a comforting thought to me to know that I had something to do when I got up in the morning. On the flip side of that, it was an anxiety-driven thought for me to know that I didn't have anything, that I was going to have to go to work and be there for a couple hours before I could find somebody to bring me something. That's what I mean when I say it's all-consuming. It was all the time, no matter what I was doing, who I was with, where I was. It was all the time, always in the back of my mind. I literally could have like walked out of the bathroom and have just went in there and done something, and walk outside to hang out with my family or whatever, or go in the living room and watch a movie with my kid, and I'm not even sitting there 30 minutes, and I'm like, how many do I have? Do I have enough that I could go in there and do another one? And like I said with my Suboxone, it's one and done. I take it in the morning. That's it. I don't think about it anymore until tomorrow, the next day when I have to take it. So I don't feel like I have traded one drug for another. I think a lot of people think that because when you take Suboxone or Methadone, your body can become physically dependent on it. So you go through withdrawals if you stop taking the medicine abruptly. If you do a taper, then it's not the same. But I think a lot of people get a physical dependency and a substance use disorder mixed up and don't understand that there is a massive difference between the two. And as far as the second part of that, does my Suboxone make me high? It doesn't. I don't feel any effects from my Suboxone any more than I do like my daily vitamin. I can actually tell more if I miss days of taking my antidepressant than I do if I miss days of taking my Suboxone. If that tells you anything about how it affects me, like physically or mentally. Even when I first started at the clinic and we were trying to figure out what my stable dose was for my body, for me it's 10 milligrams. And I knew that when I started at the clinic that I didn't want to go up to the very highest dose because then it would take me longer, in the future to taper off of it if I got to that point and wanted to taper off of it or something happened. I think the highest that I got was 16 milligrams, and I decided that that was too much for me because it just made me feel really tired, like I had trouble keeping my eyes open, and I knew that I didn't need that much. So 10 milligrams a day is perfect for me. That's just what works for me. And I get a lot of people ask, number 4, why don't I take methadone? And I don't take methadone because, and this is just for me personally, it's not a reflection on anybody else. If you choose to take methadone, if you guys have been here for a while, or even if you've watched just one of my videos, you probably know what's getting ready to come out of my mouth. I don't care how you recover as long as you do it. I believe that there are as many different pathways to recovery as there are personalities in the world. So this is just for me and, my personal experience with it. So I don't take methadone because I will abuse it. When I was still in active use, methadone was Not the very first pain medicine that I ever tried illicitly, but it was pretty close. And I love methadone. And I knew that going into the clinic. I didn't want to take methadone because I knew that I would just be right back where I started. I might do good with it for a while if I really pushed myself to, but I didn't want to set myself up for failure walking right into it, especially considering I'd already made up my mind that this was it. I was going all in, no mess ups this time. Like when I do take methadone, it does get me high and I enjoy that feeling. So I told them when I went in and they asked me, do you have a preference? I told them, please don't put me on methadone. This is why if I ever come in here and tell you that I want to be switched over to methadone, you know that I'm lying and that I probably had a relapse and that we need to like sit down and have a meeting about it. And I was just open and honest with them about it. So that's why I don't take methadone. Number 5. Lately, this is like a repeat question that I get all the time. And it's, do I plan on taking my MAT medicine for the rest of my life? And did I give up on my taper? Did I give up on my taper? No, I did not. And do I plan on taking my MAT medicine for the rest of my life? 100% honest with you guys, I have no idea. I didn't give up on my taper necessarily. When Keith asked me to marry him, at the time, it was a choice between give up a medicine or get to marry the man that I love, the man of my dream. To me, in my mind, when Keith asked me to marry him, it wasn't a choice. Before Keith asked me to marry him, a taper was the farthest thing from my mind. I was, cruising along, just doing my thing, going to group, going to my individual counseling. I wasn't thinking about doing a taper at all. And that is why I stopped it. Because if and when I do taper off of this medicine, I want it to be on my terms. I don't want it to be because I've been forced to do it one way or the other. Whether it's because of a loss of insurance or, whatever. I want it to be on my terms because then it will be safer for me to do it. If it's on my terms, then I've made up my mind that I'm stable enough and that I'm going to be okay and that I'm not going to have to worry about a relapse. Because truth be told, when I was going through the taper, the small amount of time that I did it, March, April, May, June, July, 5 months, I was scared to death that I was going to relapse. And when it started to get really bad, like I had a lot of thoughts about calling some old people and just picking up again. And that terrifies me because then I would give up everything. I would give up those 2, certificates on the wall that I'm so friggin' proud of. I would give up all the work that I've done, I would just give up everything. And that terrifies me. And I was open and honest with Keith about that. I was like, I've never, in the whole time that I've been in recovery, like I've never wanted to pick up that phone and call somebody like I do now. And that's how we got to where we are today, with Keith picking up the phone and calling his HR company at his company and explaining the situation. So, I can't sit here today and answer you guys and tell you what future Jessica is going to do because I don't know. Am I going to be on it for the rest of my life? I don't know. Am I going to be on it a year from now or 5 years from now or 10 years from now? I honestly don't know, you guys. I'm taking it day by day because that is what works best for me and trying to work on all the other stuff in here that I need to work on. And yeah, taking this maintenance medicine is part of it. Also, part of it is having that foundation there and me continuing to build on it and continuing to work on my past trauma, my mental health, and just everything. I can't answer for what's going to happen in the future. Stick around, and no matter which way it goes, I'm going to take you guys with me. If I get to a point in my future where I decide that, okay, I'm ready to come off of this medicine, I'm going to take you guys along with me on the journey. So let's stick around. Subscribe to the channel if you want, and you'll be able to go along everywhere with me, every step of this journey with me, because that's what I spend a lot of time talking about on this channel is my recovery pathway and how I feel about it, the good, the bad, and the ugly. So maybe somebody else will scroll across this video one day or any of my videos and they'll know that they're not alone. And if they're doing things differently than me, then that's okay too, because there's a lot of dissension in the ranks in the recovery community, and I don't want that. I just want people to know that whatever way they're recovering is absolutely fine as long as you're alive and, working on trying to get yourself out of that chaotic lifestyle that could take your life. That's what matters. So if you guys want to hear more about my taper journey, you can watch these 2 videos in this playlist right here. And if you just want to know more about my story in general, you can click into this playlist right here. I love you guys, and I'll see you in the next one. Take care of yourselves and take care of each other.